Mount Isa was a town built on copper. For generations, one enormous mining operation employed thousands of people and supported almost every business, every street, and every home in the city. Then the closure of its major copper operations was announced, and suddenly the future of the entire town was in question. Today we tell the story of what really happened to Mount Isa, and the powerful lesson it holds for every property investor in Australia. First, let's understand just how dependent Mount Isa was. This is a remote city in northwestern Queensland, hundreds of kilometers from anywhere significant. It did not grow up around a port, or a university, or a diverse regional economy. It grew up around the mine. The mine was the reason the town existed, the reason people moved there, and the reason they stayed. When a town is built around a single employer like that, the property market and the mine become one and the same thing. Houses have value because people have jobs. People have jobs because of the mine. Remove the mine, and you pull out the foundation that everything else rests on. So when the closure of the major copper operations was announced, the effect on confidence was immediate and severe. Even before a single job actually disappeared, the property market began to react, because property markets run on expectations about the future. Buyers vanished. Why would anyone purchase a home in a town whose main employer is winding down? Sellers, sensing the danger, rushed to list their properties, hoping to get out before prices fell further. That combination, a flood of sellers and almost no buyers, is the exact recipe for a price collapse. Homes that had sold comfortably a few years earlier were suddenly listed at much lower prices and still sat unsold for months. This is the brutal mathematics of a single industry town. In a diversified city, if one employer closes, the others absorb some of the shock. People find new jobs, stay in their homes, and the property market wobbles but survives. In a single industry town, there is no cushion. There is no other major employer to catch the falling workers. The whole local economy depends on one thing, so when that one thing is threatened, everything is threatened at once. But the Mount Isa story is not purely one of decline, and this is where it gets genuinely interesting. The same geology that made Mount Isa a copper town also contains other valuable minerals, including the critical minerals that the modern economy increasingly depends on for batteries, electronics, and the energy transition. Several mining companies have been exploring and developing projects in the broader region. If even one of these projects reaches full production, it could bring new employment, new workers, and a new demand for housing. For a town that has been written off, that possibility represents a genuine, if uncertain, lifeline. This creates a fascinating and risky contrarian situation. Property in Mount Isa can now be bought extraordinarily cheaply, because the market has priced in the worst. A home that might cost many times more in a coastal city can be purchased here for a fraction of the price. For a brave, contrarian investor who believes the critical minerals story will play out, those prices could look like a remarkable bargain in 10 years. But the risk is equally real. If no major new project arrives, the town could continue its slow decline, and that cheap house could become an asset that is almost impossible to sell at any price. This is the definition of a high-risk, high-reward bet. So what is the lesson for property investors everywhere, even those who would never dream of buying in a remote mining town? The lesson is about the danger of concentration. Mount Isa is simply the most extreme, visible version of a risk that exists in many places. Any town, any suburb, any regional center that depends too heavily on a single industry, a single employer, or a single economic driver carries this same fragility. A coastal town that lives entirely on tourism. A regional center built around a single large factory. A suburb whose values depend entirely on one nearby industry. The principle is identical. The more diversified the local economy, the safer your property. The more concentrated it is, the more you are really betting on one thing continuing forever. Before buying anywhere, the single most powerful question you can ask is this: if the main industry of this place disappeared tomorrow, what would happen to property values? In a city like Melbourne or Adelaide, the answer is that the economy is so diverse the impact would be limited. In a place like Mount Isa, the answer is that everything would change at once. That single question, asked honestly, would save countless investors from their worst mistakes. Mount Isa stands today on the edge between decline and revival, its fate tied to whether new mineral projects arrive to replace the industry that built it. Its story is a stark reminder that property is never just about the building. It is about the economy that gives the building its value. If you found this useful, hit subscribe, because we break down a different Australian property market and town every few days. See you in the next one. It is worth reflecting on how quickly a single industry town can change character, because it happens faster than most people expect. A property market does not wait for jobs to actually disappear. It reacts the moment confidence breaks, often years before the final impact arrives. This is why investors in single industry towns can be caught so badly. They watch the mine still operating, the workers still employed, and they assume they have time. But the property market is forward-looking. It prices in the expected future, not the present reality. By the time the decline is undeniable, the window to sell at a reasonable price has usually already closed. Confidence, not employment figures, is what moves these markets first, and confidence can evaporate in a single announcement.